certificates for this webinar, and you can request it either by emailing me or by emailing calprohelp@air.org, and I will put that email address in the chat pod as well. And at this point, I will hand it back over to Marion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Looks like a lot of you are old hands at this, but you never know if there's somebody that's new to webinars. I guess eventually we'll be able to not even do that anymore. Everyone, it'll just be like dialing the phone. But meanwhile, we want to make sure you know what's going on, and we have Tricia Ouellette here with us today talking about post-secondary transitions and what they're doing at Mount Diablo Adult Education. And Tricia is the perfect person to talk to us about this. She's the program coordinator for the ABE, ASE, and high school equivalency department at Mount Diablo Adult Education, and she's also the co-chair of the ABE work group at her consortium, the Contra Costa County Consortium. She's been in adult education since 2005, and I always like to tell people that before that she was a project coordinator for clinical trials in a pharmaceutical company. And she said, even though she's working really hard now, it's less stressful than when you make a mistake. It's not like lots of people will die if you did something wrong with the drug. So we're very happy that she made the transition to adult education. And with that, I will turn it over to Tricia.
Thank you, Marion. Welcome, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? I just want to double check. I guess better yet, maybe I should just say, if you are having problems, please check in the chat room. Maybe that's a better way to do this. So welcome. As Marion said, my name is Tricia, and I'm from Mount Diablo Adult Education, which is located in Concord, California. Prior to that, though, I wanted to let you know as well that I used to be a teacher, an adult school teacher at Vallejo Adult School, and I taught ASE classes as well as ESL classes. So welcome, everybody. I'm here today not because I'm an expert in post-secondary transitions, but rather in the spirit of sharing what we've been doing at Mount Diablo Adult Education, as well as what we've been doing in our consortium, our Contra Costa County Consortium. Our consortium consists of 8 adult schools, Pittsburgh Adult School, Martinez Adult School, Antioch, Acalanes, Liberty, West Contra Costa, Mount Diablo Adult School, hopefully I didn't forget anybody there, and 3 community colleges, Los Medanos Community College, Diablo Valley Community College, and West Contra Costa Community College. And so I've been very fortunate to work with the instructors and people at those institutions, and they've helped me tremendously with my own job at my own school. And so today, what I wanted to talk about, the objectives for today, is really to analyze the importance and benefits of supporting successful post-secondary transitions. I think that's quite obvious as to how it benefits the students, but I want to talk about how it benefits the adult schools. I would like to define the skills needed for successful post-secondary transitions. And as I'm going along, I'm going to kind of tell you about some of the bumps and boo-boos that have been, and challenges, let's say, that have happened as well. And one of the things, my first year participating in our AEBG consortium was very frustrating to me. And the reason why was because the group that was there really seemed to only want to have the conversation, what's the fastest way we can get all the students from the adult schools to the community colleges? And that seemed to be like that was the only conversation that was happening. And so it's been very frustrating to me because my feeling was these transitions need to be successful transitions, and these students need to be prepared. And at the very beginning, there wasn't much thought, I thought, that went into what skills needed to be what skills the students needed to have before they would transition over. And so thankfully, since then, we have had a lot of those conversations, and a lot has been done about that. And so I'm happy to share that with you today. And then lastly, to identify some of the practices to promote post-secondary transitions, what we're doing at our school. Okay. So before we go too much further, I would really like to know who all I'm talking to. And so we have 2 little pods here that we would like for you to answer. If you could let us know that if you, what role you play at your school, if you're an instructor, an administrator, a counselor, but then also what type of agency you work for, whether it's, the adult schools, community colleges, libraries, correctional facility. I would appreciate it. So let me give you just a few minutes to finish that. Looks like we have a lot of adult school people here. Welcome, and a few community college people as well. So welcome. Glad to have you with us. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything really move, so I think we're okay. Let's see if there's anything else of noteworthy. Okay, and some transition specialists. Good. We have some wonderful transition specialists working in our consortium as well, and they're doing some really interesting things, so I'm excited to share that with you as well. Okay, so moving on here. Let me get back to... so objective number 1, the benefits of a successful post-secondary transition. And as I said, it's pretty obvious how it benefits the students, how it benefits the communities. Obviously, educated and skilled workforce benefits our communities. Employers want to have their companies in areas where there's a skilled workforce, and generally communities that have a good economic environment are generally safer. So that's all very obvious. But I also wanted to kind of bring up how making the transitions a priority at our school has actually benefited our school. And the first thing is really that it has motivated our students. And so by talking a lot about goals, talking a lot about post-secondary transitions, and really making that a focus of our school has really motivated our students. And motivated students have better persistence. And so it's increased the persistence at our school as well. We've also used the things, our staff that does the post-secondary transitions and the things that we're doing to help students transition. We've used that as marketing tools and as recruitment tools. And I'm happy to say that we have a big wait list, a much bigger wait list this year than we've had in previous years. And I think that potentially that could be part of it. The last thing, benefit for us, was kind of an unexpected benefit. And we have on our campus, we have an ESL department, a CTEC department, adults with disabilities department, parent ed department, our lifelong learning departments at another campus. But when we started working on these transitions, and not only just transitions to post-secondary, but also transitions among our campus, it really increased the collaboration between the coordinators on our campus, between the teachers on our campus. And so I think it's really been a huge benefit for us. Not only are we working more closely with other adult schools and learning from other adult schools, but we're learning from the community colleges, and we're learning from the wonderful people that are on our own campus that maybe we don't see very often. Now, yes, it's a benefit, but it's also a requirement, right? So a couple of weeks ago, we had CASAS and AEBG come to our campus for our consortium to do AEBG accountability training. And it was a wonderful training. My understanding is that they will be going all over the state of California providing that training to other consortiums as well. But the thing that I found the most interesting is that the focus is really on outcomes. There's really a strong focus on outcomes. And so, yes, it will still continue, to be, the benchmarks will still continue to be monitored. The CASA's pre and post, or whatever testing that you're using. They will also continue to, monitor the data for the high school diploma graduates and the high school equivalency graduates. But also, the thing that I thought was really important is that they're also now monitoring the transition to post-secondary. And so some of that data is self-reported. And so that is why it's really critical, in addition to doing the practices and working on the the things that will help our students transition, we also want to really keep in mind that we really need to focus on the data. It would be a shame to do all of this wonderful work and then really not have the data to show for it. And because some of it is self-reported data, we need to get systems in place at our schools so that we can record that. And we'll be talking a little bit about how we're doing that at Mount Diablo a little bit later. Some of the data is state-level data matched data, and potentially they may be doing some self-reporting at this point, but maybe later some of that will be state-level data match. So that's just another good reason why we need to get our systems in place now. So objective 2, skills needed for successful transitions to post-secondary. And as I said, this has been, I'm very passionate about this because, like I said, I don't want the students to transition, getting them over to the community college or into a CTEC program, getting them that piece of paper does absolutely no good if they don't have the skills to be successful at their next step, whatever that next step is. And so we've put a lot of thought into what skills. Our consortium, ABE work group, has put a lot of work into defining those skills. The good news is that really the college and career readiness standards have established a lot of those for us. The college and career readiness standards were developed for adult education, and it was to help the adult schools develop curriculum for skills for adult learners to be successful in colleges, technical training programs, work and citizenship, in the areas of language arts, literacy, and mathematics. However, I would argue that these are no longer really college and career readiness standards, but rather life skill standards. Analyzing complex text, critical thinking and problem solving, oral and written communication skills, research skills, identifying valid sources and determining an author's purpose, and identifying bias are really now life skill standards. If you don't believe me, just watch the news and look what's happening in our country. Of course our country is divided because some of us are not checking the validity of the sources of information that we're getting. And so we really need to teach our students these skills, not just so that they can go to a community college, but really so that they can be educated and educated systems and protect our democracy. The other argument that I would make for the adult schools really aligning their curriculum to the college and career readiness standards is that we really need to make sure that our curriculum is rigorous enough so that students can transition to the community colleges and not transition into the lower level classes as well. And this, I know I've got some community college people, so I want to make this statement as well for the ABE classes at the community colleges. If our programs do not give the skills necessary to be successful at the rigorous, at the credit college, at the credit level, then the community colleges will have no choice but to add more non-credit programs, more bridge programs. And so the whole point of ABEG was really, when it came about, was to eliminate the duplication of services. And so if we are not making our courses rigorous enough and so that students can transition and be successful transitioning over there, it does no good to send them over there if 6 months later they're no longer there because they dropped out. Then we're not doing what we need to for our students. I've had students, that when we changed over to the college and career readiness standards, I've had some students to say, this is so much more difficult than it used to be. This is more difficult than what I did, when I was in school. And my response to them is, you'll thank me later. You'll be more successful in a career training program in a community college. This will help you later, and you're getting it for free now. I've had teachers tell me, this is difficult because our students are coming in at such a low level, and you're wanting us to almost perform the impossible and get them, to a much higher, college-ready level. And my response to my teachers is, well, thank goodness that we are adult school teachers, because we excel at scaffolding. That's what we do best. The ABE at the college and the adult school teachers, we help our students. We do scaffolding all the time. All of our lessons, we do scaffolding and a lot of differentiation. And so they're at the best place they can be. The other thing that I wanted to point out, too, in the training that I told you about, the CASAS and AEBG accountability training, something came up was, or the thing that came up was that if students transition from a K-12 adult education or from the community college ABE classes into yet another non-credit class, that does not count as a post-secondary transition. So when AEBG is looking at those outcomes, we need to make sure that those students, whether they're entering and they're attending the college ABE or they're attending the K-12 adult education, that we have those students ready to go into credit level classes at the community college or into right into career tech training. Okay. So before we go too much further into this, I was just curious to check with you and see what you think are the most important skills for successful post-secondary transitions. And so there should be there is a little chat box coming up here. And so I'm going to give you just a minute or two to kind of think about this, and then just pop in some ideas of what you think our students really need to be skilled at in order, and again, not to just get over there and registered, but to really be successful in the program so that they complete the programs at the post-secondary level. Organizational and time management, we agree. Boy, they're flying in fast and furious here. I'm having trouble reading and keeping up. Independent learning, that was another thing we're going to talk about as well. Academic language, absolutely. And academic language is addressed in the college and career readiness standards as well. Soft skills, good. Critical thinking skills, absolutely. Accountability, you bet. Time management, absolutely. So these, we agree with you. One thing while we're still doing this too, if you need support with college and career readiness training for your teachers or for your staff, CALPRO offers that training. And so at the end of this slideshow, Marion's going to put up a slide that gives you some of the events that are scheduled coming up. And I believe, too, that if you have enough people, they will come to your site and do the training there. And Marion, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Self-advocacy, good. And sense of purpose, you got it. I don't want to stop this because everybody's doing so well here. So one more thing I'll just kind of mention as these are coming in. A lot of our schools now for the high school diploma and high school equivalency are doing online work, and some schools are doing where it's just solely online work. And my recommendation to the adult schools in my consortium and my recommendation to you as well, yes, we use some online courses at our school as well, and I'll tell you how we use them, but I really recommend classes with direct instruction for English and math. I think it's awfully hard to do the college and career readiness standards without that direct instruction. Okay, so outstanding. We've got some good suggestions in here for the skills. So I think we're all pretty much on the same page. So if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and advance here. Thank you for doing that. So as I said, this is really just a chance to kind of share with you what we've done at Mount Diablo Adult School based on what we've learned from other schools and from our consortium. So we kind of went about this as kind of a three-pronged attack. And so one of them is changing our program structure. And that started to happen actually as the Common Core standards came about. But we've made a lot of changes since then. I will say that in changing our program structure, the thing that has been the most helpful is that we have a very supportive administration at our school. Vittoria Abate is our director, and not only is she a director for our school, but she's also involved very heavily in the state level AEBG conversations that go on as well. Changing attitudes. This kind of started probably with my attitude. As I told you at the very beginning, I was a little frustrated with this process. But changing our attitude, the attitude of our students, attitude of our teachers, and then finally changing our purpose. And in changing our purpose, a lot of things changed as well at our school. So, okay, so we'll start with changing this structure. So as I said, I am one of the co-chairs for the AEBG ABE work group. And that work group consists of instructors from the 8 adult schools that I mentioned and the 3 community colleges. And so we got together in this work group and we asked our community college instructors, we want our students to be your best students. What do we need to do to make that happen? And our community college instructors were just invaluable with all their help. They brought their books and their textbooks and their course outlines and shared all of those with us so that we could really make more of a sequential line between our programs. But what they told us is that writing skills. Students really need to improve their writing skills. They won't be successful in English classes, but they also won't be successful in social studies classes or in career tech programs if they don't have good writing skills. Math skills, we weren't surprised when they said that. We know that the importance of sending our students over there with good math skills. Now, when we talked about, having that trajectory into the credit level classes, I know that my students from my school will not transfer directly into what they call a transfer level class because we don't offer Algebra 2 at our school. But my hope is that they will have the solid math skills to get into career tech programs and into the higher level ABE classes. Homework, I think somebody put in there when they were putting in the chat pod. I forget what that's called. The chat pod, I think it's called, to be able to work independently. Our community colleges told us that students are absolutely shocked when they see how much homework that they are expected to do outside of class and on their own. And then also navigating systems. What do students do when they don't understand? How do they, somebody else typed in something about independent learning, being able to find the help, being able to navigate systems, whether it is registering for a class or finding help on the campus to help them. The academic culture, they said sometimes some of the younger students do not know how to behave in an adult classroom, and so we needed to help our students with that. Technology was a big issue. They said that because they use a lot of the online programs for homework, our students need to be able to some of them I think used Blackboard, and so they need to be able to know how to use those types of programs. And then they said something that was really very interesting, and they said, it's very hard for us to align, and this is the community colleges, said it's very hard for us to align with the adult schools because all of your adult schools are all very different. And they're talking about just the ones in our county, right, are all very different. They said you have different graduation requirements, you're using different textbooks, you have different course outlines, your classroom structures are all different, and so it's difficult to align with you when you are so different. So all of the feedback that we got from the community colleges, as I said, was just invaluable. And we did this, we have an ABE work group, but we also have an ESL work group as well. And sometimes we work together and sometimes we work apart. And so all of that information was very helpful for us. So we listened, and what we did is we worked with our ABE consortium work group. The ESL worked with their work group, but in the ABE area, we worked on a new course outline for English. And it didn't really start as a course outline, but rather as just like what you did when you typed in all the skills that you thought students needed to have to be successful. It kind of started out that way, where we were just throwing out the ideas and the things that we thought were important. And so we came up with a new English course outline, and you have that where you can download it. This course outline was designed to be contextualized to the community colleges so that students were learning the skills that they would need in the community college, but also to the business information workers. So you'll see that there is, in that course outline, there are modules for research and not plagiarizing. There is modules for time management, note-taking. Oh my goodness. In all of my classes, I have all of my teachers teaching note-taking, whether it is an English class, a science class, a social studies class. One of the things that they said is just note-taking, being able to take notes, because even if they're doing a PowerPoint, the instructor's not going to stop and wait for everybody to copy every single word off that PowerPoint, right? And so being able to have the study skills, the research skills, the writing skills was very important. And so another thing, when we designed this, because again, we're working with the ABE instructors at the community colleges when we were doing this, is that we designed the course outline so that it could be done at the adult school level using high school level curriculum, but it could also be done at the community college level using the college level curriculum. And we felt like that was very important. We also developed, as our ABE work group, developed a workplace math course outline. And it is contextualized to construction trade, to business, and to healthcare. And this was an important course outline to our group, but it was especially important to my school. My school district, Mount Diablo Unified School District, just a couple of years ago, raised the graduation requirement for us. So instead of needing 20 credits to get a diploma, our students need 30 math credits to get their diploma. And this was difficult for us for a number of reasons. One is that they deleted pre-algebra and algebra skills, I think it was called algebra skills, and said you can't offer that anymore. And so what we did is we went ahead and we added geometry. The first semester, we added a geometry class. And talk about a big boo-boo. Pretty much everybody in that class failed. The reason? Because they did not have the algebra skills they needed to be successful in the geometry class. And so we had to take a step back. And so when we started talking about this workplace math, we realized that this is a place where our students can really get the math foundations that they need. They're getting it in a way that is contextualized to the workplace so that it will help them to transition into trainings for construction and healthcare and business. But it will also help them for those that are trying to take the high school equivalency test, because some of our students were struggling in the algebra class because they didn't have any basic skills. And so it helps, those students are able to take this class as well. We also get students that are referred to us from our own CTEC program on our campus, because that program has an entrance test. It's pretty much a basic math entrance test, but students that fail it cannot get into the CTEC program. So those students are referred over to our ABE program. And so so I have all these students that have these different goals, and so it was nice to be able to find a math class that could really help them. The last group was our ESL students that are trying to also get into career training programs and need math courses. And so rather than having a math course in the high school program and a math course in the ESL program, it made sense that we put these math courses together. And so we have students in our ESL classes that maybe leave their classes on 2 days a week to come over to take the math class. And this is another way to also help our ESL students transition into our high school diploma and high school equivalency classes, should they elect to do so. And kind of gives them kind of that little, you know how before you jump in the pool, you put your little toe in to see how well you like it and the water temperature. This is kind of a chance for those students to make their first attempt at a transition into the high school program. For those, and so we have those 2 course outlines, and we have those attached. You're welcome to download them, share them, use them. If you need a Microsoft Word copy of it, just email me. I have my email on the very last slide, and you're welcome to email me so that you can modify it for your program. I never believe in starting from scratch if I don't have to. Another thing that we are doing at our campus is we are utilizing boot camps. And one of the boot camps for those students that took the CTEC test and failed, but only failed by a few points, we have a little boot camp on Fridays it's more of a math refresher. The students that failed by a lot and got a very low score on that, we encouraged to take the workplace math course. And again, I wanted to mention too that is probably one of my most popular classes this term. That class is pretty full on and has quite a wait list. And we do other boot camps as well. Remember, the community colleges talked about how important technology is for them. And so we have just little boot camps on technology. The boot camps, I think, are helpful because it requires less of a commitment for the students, and so they're more apt to do it. They know that they're not going to be in there for a whole semester or a whole trimester, but rather maybe a couple of weeks and get the help that they need. Another thing that we did for our students, and this actually originated as a way to help ESL students transition into the high school department, is a writing lab. I had gone to my English teachers, and I knew that our second language students were struggling in our English classes. And so I went to the English instructors and said, how can we help these students? And they all said basically, these students are so smart and they're so dedicated, but they're really struggling with the writing. And so we started a writing lab, and really the first time we did it, it was just for ESL students. And then after that got to going, my English teachers were saying, but we have a lot of native-born speakers that, really need help with writing skills as well. And so that has kind of grown into where we have a writing lab during the day for the morning students, but we also have a writing lab at night. Our classes meet on Tuesday and Thursday night for our regular classes, and so we have writing labs going on Wednesday night so that students don't miss the classes they're in, but they can go to the writing lab and get extra help. That particular teacher that teaches it is great at differentiation, great at scaffolding, the other thing, talk about little missteps. One of the missteps we made at the very beginning is that when we started this as an ESL transition class, is that we really made the class about grammar and about vocabulary. And the students came back to us and said, but that's what we're learning in our ESL classes. We just want help with writing. And so now the writing lab is really, we still do some review on some grammar if we're seeing those mistakes, but really getting into the formatting of the writing and really helping students with getting beyond just the grammar. We have a learning lab available for students to come and work together or come in and use books after the classes. It also provides math support. We have a teacher in there that can help with math support. Remember, the community colleges said they need to, instead of students quitting, they need to be able to find help. And so getting them used to going to the learning lab or identifying themselves, hopefully, as someone that's struggling and seeking the help on their own, or sometimes they're referred by their instructors. Electives. We also provide elective classes for our students, and we provide these electives for all of our students, whether it is the CTEC students, the high school students, or the ESL students. We always tend to laugh that my ESL students sometimes attend more of my high school classes than my high school students do. And so, but we want these electives to be relevant to the students, to adults, and to adult life. And so one of the workshops we're doing is the ETS Workforce Skills. I think somebody typed into the chat pod soft skills, and that's what this program is all about, is to help students with their soft skills. And they get a little certificate at the end of it that they can put with their resume or their application. And we have a lot of
Tricia,
ESL students. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because you have a couple of questions. Lynette is wondering if you could describe the technology boot camp a little more, like what's included in that.
You know, it kind of changes each time each year we've kind of changed it a little bit based on what what my teachers are telling me our students need. And so keyboarding is one of them. Especially for our GED students or our high school equivalency students, it's pretty hard to type an essay if you're like my husband and you type one finger at a time. And so teaching students how to type using the home row has been an important one. I'm going to talk a little bit later about Google Classroom. Our students, our teachers this year are very excited about using Google Classroom, but now we're finding that we have some students that really don't know how to navigate the computers very well. And so just some basic computer things that, you know, you kind of think that everybody knows at this point, but some people don't, and they need to know how to use the mouse and to right click on the mouse and you know, to log off and how to delete browsing history, especially since we're working in classrooms. So hopefully that answered a little bit of that problem, that question. Was there another one, Marian? Or?
Yes, Alma's asking, how did you start the writing lab? Is it within one of your reading or writing classes, or is it a separate class, or how did you do that?
We did it as a separate class, and again, it was because we were it was our second language students. It started as an effort to help our second language students that were struggling with the writing class. I think it's okay to talk a little bit about some of the textbooks that we're using, but one of them that we really like is Essay Architect. You know, when we first started, like I said, I was just really focused on grammar. I thought, you know what, fix the grammar and everything will be perfect, right? But it isn't. Just being able to put thoughts in writing, mapping out so that your paragraphs and your essays are organized. They go through that as well, and then just giving the students, you know, a chance to write, and we keep those writing labs very small because we want the teacher to be able to, you know, look at every student's writing and kind of identify what the issues are. And so sometimes when everybody is having the same issue, then she does the instruction on, you know, what that issue is. But sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, the student not understanding, you know, how to format or how to put their thoughts in a logical order. Okay, so hopefully that kind of answers some of your question there. Thank you for asking those questions. So to continue on with the changes that we made in our structure, remember the community colleges said, you know, you guys need to you're all different. It would be helpful if you were more alike. And so we are working in our consortium, the adult schools, to try to make it more of a regional delivery system of adult education and not be so different. So we're, you know, comparing curriculum. Like I said, we've started doing where we're developing course outlines together. But again, I also want to emphasize my recommendation to our adult schools in this area is, you know, nothing replaces a good teacher. And so really having, you know, at least some classes that have direct instruction for math and for English, I think is very helpful. Another thing that we did for our structure in our high school diploma classes was that we have, well, let me kind of start with the class structure. We restructured our classes so that in high school diploma, we tried to make it so that we're modeling after the community colleges. And so we have classes, maybe the government class meets on Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 11. And our U.S. history class meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:15 to 1:15. And, our high school equivalency social studies class meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11. So the students get used to having a schedule and going to different classes on different days. We consider it a practice run for when they do go on to a community college or a career tech program. And so in addition to that, remember they talked about the homework and that students need to be able to do homework online and to do a lot more of the homework outside of the class. And that also helps us with acceleration. So now instead of having 2 semesters, we actually have 3 trimesters. And so they do the direct instruction in the classes, and then they have the work that they have to do outside of classes. So if the students are there every day, and let's say take the government class for instance, they're every day, they do all the work that's in the class, they take all the tests and all the quizzes and pass, that's 3 credits. Those other 2 credits are earned outside of class. Sometimes a teacher will say, okay, I want 1 project, I'm assigning 1 project you do outside of class, and 1 unit on, we use Odysseyware for our blended learning because that program is really easy to kind of manipulate and pull whatever units and lessons we want into a little mini class for those students and for those. And so this gives them just kind of a taste of what it is like doing the online homework, so that then when they go on to a community college or a career training program, they've already been able to do or have been exposed to online learning. And again, the question about the technology boot camps, the students that are identified as having trouble with that will come to the boot camp so that we can show them, or even do just the learning lab so that we can help them get used to, logging in and being able to answer the questions and navigating those learning systems as well. In addition, for acceleration, we have some of my students take classes and independent study or online classes. So again, they may be taking the economics, the English, and the math classes in class, the traditional classroom, but they may be doing their government class online. And so we try to have as many options available to help as many learners as we can. Workplace skills in the orientations. I'm going to talk a little bit about orientations as well. Oh my goodness, time's going by fast. I better hurry it up. In the orientations, I talk a little bit about my husband was actually 10 minutes late to our wedding, if you can believe that. And my father thought I had been left at the altar. But really, I knew, and all of my friends knew, that Ron was just always late. You wouldn't have thought he'd be late to his wedding, but yes, he was. And so I tell the students this because sometimes just being late, not being punctual, can be just a bad habit. And giving yourself enough time to get to work on time or to get to class on time is just a habit. Let's start practicing those habits at the adult education level so that you have them when you go into a career tech program. Because I know in our C-Tech program, once those students go into their externship, if those students aren't on time to their externships, they are dropped. And not only do the students not get the jobs and the externships, but it makes our C-Tech program look bad as well. And so it's important that we start working with those kinds of skills as well. I mentioned that our teachers this year, we just started Google Classroom, and my teachers love it. The students are pretty excited about it as well. But this, again, that way when they go to a community college or wherever and they're using Blackboard or some online program, this isn't new to them. And then I already talked about the learning labs and, of course, having computer labs available outside of class for students to come in and learn. Changing attitudes. I mentioned that one of the attitudes that needed changed was mine, and I can report that I'm much better now. I actually, as you can tell, am very passionate about helping students transition to post-secondary, but to make sure that they have the skills to do it successfully. And because this is a change in our classroom and has changed our curriculum, orientations have become very, very important. And so it's we provide orientations before they get started. It's a 2-part orientation. The first one is really an informational orientation. Why are we doing what we're doing in our classes? Why do we have so much writing? Why are we using all of this technology? And like I said, I always say, you'll thank me later, you'll thank me later. But explaining to them that, we're doing this now where you have lots of help so that when you get, to the community colleges, you already have some experience. Also at the orientations, they get 2 appointments. One is an appointment with me. They meet with me one-on-one to go through their grad plan, which is basically this is for the high school diploma students so that they know exactly what they need to do at our school to get a diploma, and we plan it out so they know exactly how long that will take for them to accomplish that. But the other thing is that they have an appointment with our career transition person, and that's an important thing. Remember, we talked about motivated students and keeping that motivation going. So we need them to really visualize and know they have appointments and that they are progressing to get those, to get towards their goal. And Tiffany is the teacher. Tiffany Peyton Silveria is our teacher that does that, and she starts it early. So if she knows that she has a student that's going to be going into the CTEC program, she knows that they have to pass that entrance test. So rather than sending them over there and then maybe, hopefully not having them fail the entrance test, we start preparing them for their entrance test while they're still trying to pass their high school equivalency test. And so we have that going on as well. Another thing that, again,
One
sorry?
quick question.
Sure.
And I know you have a lot to get through, Tricia, so I think after this we'll hold the questions to the end. But Eunice is asking, how do you know how long it's going to take a student to complete their graduation plan, to complete their diploma? How do you calculate that?
Okay, for us, we have terms, right? So we have 3 terms in our. So it's not where students go in and they work on their own. It's actually a class and they have terms. So our first term goes from August to right before Thanksgiving. The second term goes from right after Thanksgiving to mid-March, and the third term is from mid-March to June. And so we just plan it out with however many credits that student needs, and then we plan it out. So they're only able to come 2 days a week. Well, we can do this many classes during this term. Now again, remember, we have independent study, we have different electives that they can do, we have online classes, so maybe they can only attend so many classes because they can only come 2 days, but maybe we can do some things online and some other ways to accelerate that process. Okay, so I hope that answered that question. One other thing I wanted to tell you about the transitions, and this has been a little bit of a hiccup and frustratingly so, is that one of my bright ideas was to have what's called CTSS Presents, Career Transition Support Services Presents. And so we would have workshops on our campus where the colleges and employers would come around and, tell the students about it and hope they go, and it was never really attended as well as I had hoped it would be. And so I started doing in class, where I would, instead of the students going to those presentations, started doing the presentations in the classroom. And I thought it was a good idea. And really it was meant, the students that are interested in transitioning and are ready to do so, they're going to go to those fairs. But the ones that don't think they're ready to transition yet, or that don't think that they're interested, those were the students that I wanted to reach. And so by having it in the classroom, it allowed students to hear about opportunities that they may not have gone to go find out about. And those that didn't think they were ready to transition yet, it got them thinking about the transitioning process. And so I was really excited about it. I think it was going really well, but the only hiccup that we kind of came up with was that the colleges, because they were sending their career transition person to our classrooms to do it, wanted the sign-in sheet of all of the students that were attending the class. Now this was a problem because, remember, I didn't give the students a choice. I felt like this was important for them to do in their classes, and so they didn't have the ability to opt out. And so I didn't feel like it was appropriate then to give their information to the community colleges for that very reason. And so until we can kind of work something out with that, I think we're probably going to have to go back to where the workshops are outside of the classes. And I think that's unfortunate. But if we kind of get that figured out, we'll maybe try that again. I know that I'm getting close to running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of jump through here. One other thing that I meant to mention for the orientation that the students do is they also do a career interest survey. It takes them about 30 seconds to do. We do it at the orientation, and it is on our website. So you're welcome to go look at that survey. On the last slide, I will give you our website to our school. Click on the high school diploma arrow, and then on the quick link, click on career transitions, and you will see that survey. And that survey was really to tell Tiffany, because remember she's the one meeting with students one-on-one, but to let her know what students are interested in the dental program, what students want to go to the community college, what students are just trying to get a better job, so that she can put them into clusters, so that if she is doing a field trip to the Career Tech program, we also let our ESL students know as well that may have interest in that, but she'll contact those students and set up a field trip and take those students over for a field trip for that. Let's see, let me go ahead and head on. All of this has really been about changing our purpose. And when we change our purpose, a couple of things have actually happened. One is our ESL department has this wonderful program called Project Access. And it is working directly with the community college for students that are interested in early childhood education. And so they take some of the classes at our adult school to learn English, and the English that they learn is, helps them with what they're learning at the community college about early childhood education. So it's a very focused and very contextualized program, and that's been very, very successful, and we're very, very proud of that. In our Adults with Disabilities program, we have another project that just got off the ground that's called Project Success. And Karen Lingenfelter is the coordinator for that program and has done a tremendous amount of work, but it's really paying off. And she is working with Embassy Suites, so that a lot of our students in the Adults with Disabilities program are training and working over at Embassy Suites to help them to develop career skills. So I wanted to mention that. And then also the other thing in changing our purpose has also been changing some of our job descriptions. So I told you about Tiffany. We also have our consortium. Whoops, I missed something there. Our consortium has hired career transition specialists. And the adult schools share specialists. So Mount Diablo Adult School shares Daryl Coachman with Martinez and Acalanes. And then he also, the community colleges have their transition specialists as well. And so Daryl works very closely with Nicole, who is the DVC Community College Transition Specialist. And the nice part about this is that they work very closely together and work very well together, which is very supportive for the students. And so when we want to have a workshop on financial aid, I just called Daryl and he and Nicole put it together, or a career exploration workshop. So instead of me having to put something together or my teachers having to do yet another thing, we just call them and they come over and put that together for us and provide that to our students. One note, it's really important, I think, that and Daryl and Nicole do this, is that transitions are two ways, right? So my son went to a community college, as did I when I first started out. We're huge proponents of community colleges, but my son would try to get into a class and it would be full. He couldn't get into it, so he'd have to go the first day and then have the teacher sign something so that he'd get in. And then at the end, when they were doing finals, he would be one of 10 students that were doing the final. And so I can't help but wonder, all of those students that dropped out, some had special circumstances, but I think that probably some dropped out because they didn't have the skills needed to be necessary to be successful in that class. And so identifying those students at the community colleges and referring them to the adult schools for brush up and remediation, as well as to the ABE classes, is very important. The other thing,
Tricia,
yep.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, because since we only have about 4 minutes left, we're going to go ahead and switch to the last layout so that you'll see that there's 2 chat pods here about which ideas you might try and how will you help support students in transitioning to post-secondary, and also if you have questions or questions, you can put them in there too. But you have your slides there, Tricia, so go ahead.
Okay, a great idea. Thank you, Marion. The other thing that I think our consortium has really done well is that they have really invested in professional development for our transition specialist, and a lot of that professional development has been focused on helping students to overcome barriers. And so they've had professional development. Daryl knows all about financial aid. He knows all about undocumented students and the challenges they have. Adults with disabilities, adults that have learning disabilities, what our colleges offer the students, so that if we identify that students, Daryl and Nicole can help connect those students to the services there at the college.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you one more time and just point out to people the handouts are in a share box at the bottom right of your screen. It's called File 16, and there's 4 things there. If you just click on one of them, then the download button will light up, and it's probably going to open up on a screen behind this screen, so you might have to look around for where it is to download it. But the 2 course outlines that she's mentioned, the slides, and the transition questionnaire form are all there. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, you're fine. Thank you. The last thing I just wanted to mention is just a reminder to not forget the data. We record our service hours in ASAP. We use ASAP. And so every time I do a grad plan with a student, I'm recording it as education counseling. Every time Tiffany meets with a student, she's recording it as career transition support. We also use Google Docs to help track the students that are transitioning from ESL to ABE, the students that are transitioning from ABE to CTEC. So make sure you don't forget the data. Okay. In a nutshell, embrace the change. Please contact CalPro if you need any help with college and career readiness standards training. Contact OTAN if you need any help with technology training for your teachers. Work with your community colleges. Like I said, they've been an invaluable help to me and my job. Contextualize whenever possible, because that really makes it relevant for our adult learners. And let me get, I think, to, whoops, the next slide. I'll put my contact information up there while I read some of these ideas here. Work with student services and create math and English instructors to create better pathways. Great. Great. Well, I hope this webinar has been helpful to you. As I said, we're still a work in progress, but I think it's really important that we share ideas and help each other through this for the sake of our students.
Well, thank you so much. That was a lot of information packed into an hour, and you can see that people are already thinking about some of the many suggestions you have and many things that you've done at Mount Diablo and thinking about how to use them for themselves. So that's great, and we appreciate it. So if you need to leave right this second, the evaluation box is on the bottom left. If you click on the word evaluation in the white part, it will take you to the evaluation. I was going to promote some of the things that CalPro has to offer, but in the interest of time, since we're at the limit, I'll just tell you there is an online course on transitions to post-secondary. It'll be offered in the spring. There's 2 parts of it. One starts in February and the other starts in April. And we'll send you an email after this, and I'll have some other additional information for you on other resources. But this has been terrific. Tricia, thank you so much. Those of you who remember how to click on your communication icon and go to applause, let's give Tricia a little applause. And Tricia, you can only see that by scrolling up and down in the attendee list because there's so many people in here. We can't see them all, but they're all clapping.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer. And when we close the meeting, you will be taken to the evaluation form, so look around for it if you don't see it. Thank you so much.